most of us would agree that this is the number 1. Now most of us would agree the 2 1 side by side is the number 11. Poorly drawn, we'll put a 9 in front of it, and now we don't see 911, we see 911. Then one more change to it. We put a slash through it, making a date, and we see something that we call 9/11, and that's a major incident in our lives that we know as the terrorist attacks from that date. And so the reason we look at these things differently, that a 9 in front of 2 1s becomes 911, the number for emergency response, is because of a worldview. I'm Scott Hilgendorf with Cowboys of the Cross, and this is The Short Go. And that's what we're going to talk about for just a couple of minutes is worldviews. Worldviews are how we interpret our culture around us, how we make decisions, how we process information that's given to us. It's all influenced by our worldview. Our worldview comes from things like our parents, our family upbringing, what we're taught in school, the culture around us, whether it's a rodeo community. There's ways that we learn to do things that might affect how we interact in other situations. Learning to work on a ranch, growing up on a ranch, growing up on a farm, we learn different things and different skill sets that help us to see things maybe differently or approach things differently. Those are all worldviews, the things that affect how we look at and interact with the world around us. So from a Christian standpoint, then, what we want to have as Christians is a Christian worldview. We understand that once we're saved and we have a saving faith in Jesus Christ, it isn't that there's a bunch of things that we have to do in order to be right with God. It's our salvation that makes us right before Him. But we desire to learn more about what's in Scripture, and we desire to live out those things because we know what Jesus has done for us, and because we're saved, that desire just naturally grows inside of us. We're going to look at Colossians chapter 3, just verses 1 to 3. If then you have been raised with Christ, seek the things that are above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on things that are above, not on things that are on the earth. So again, set your minds on things that are of above, not of things that are of the earth. And what Paul is telling us in this letter, in this part of the letter, is that we should be seeking things that are Christ-like. And he goes on to teach us things about holiness and how to become more holy, how to become more like Jesus Christ. Again, not that it saves us by doing those things. We do those things because we're saved. But it's those things then that gives us a Christian worldview. As we start to look at other scripture, we see there's different places where the Bible doesn't specifically call things a worldview, but it does call us to become more like Jesus, to think more like Him, act like Him. And so then that is how we start to interact with the world around us. And that's why we sometimes come into issues with the culture around us, that we start to disagree with how our society looks at things. We see things sometimes differently than our culture sees them. The issue of gay marriage becomes such a difficult topic for Christians, or especially for the world around us, in accepting Christians, because we believe something different about marriage than what our culture around us teaches us. That's a Christian worldview. And so it will sometimes cause us to be in conflict, but it also then helps us to approach things as we look at life around us, that we look for different ways that we can apply Scripture then to the situations that we're in, the circumstances we're around, how we deal with conflict, how we love one another, how we share Jesus with one another, and why we share Jesus with one another is because of the worldview that we have. So if that makes sense, that the more we can dig into Scripture, the more we can understand what it means to be like Christ, and the more we can start to look at the world around us the way maybe Jesus would have. Certainly a lot more like Jesus than like the culture around us. I'm Scott Hilgendorf. We'll see you the next time.